Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Arise with Sally Goodwin. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late this morning, like 6 minutes late. Oh my goodness. Apologies for that. That was unintentional. The time just got away with me somehow or other, as happens sometimes. But here I am with you all on this beautiful, what is today, Wednesday, this beautiful Wednesday morning. I just want to quickly put I need my laptop for the time, but I want to just put the do not disturb thing on so that Siri doesn't try and talk to me. And good morning, Hanika, lovely to see you, my friend. So that Siri doesn't try and talk to me and my emails don't make noises when they come through and all of that sort of thing. Good morning, Monica. Hello, my beautiful friend. Oh, I know I still need to set up a meeting with you, Monica. My amazing friend Monica is going to help me with my devotional book. So I'm very excited about that. Good morning, Jen. Feels like I haven't seen you or spoken to you in ages. Absolute ages. I'm still trying to find my good morning, Elsie. Lovely to see you, my friend. Trying to find my perfect space here. Excuse me while I move you around. Good morning, beautiful Bertha. Good morning, lovely Arena. Arena sent me such an amazing message yesterday, saying that she really feels as though she has, I hope you're okay with me sharing this, Arena. I'm kind of sharing it without asking you first, but she really just feels so excited about having an online community. So I thought, wow, I've never thought of it like that. You know, I've never thought of the fact that all of you gorgeous ladies who watch Arise have formed like an online community. Oh, hang on a second, I forgot to plug the microphone in. Oh, okay. Good morning, Martha. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, Arena. Sorry, I should have asked before I shared that. But yeah, I just think it's amazing actually that, you know, we have this online community where we get to chat together and get to relate to each other and understand where we all are and all of that kind of thing. I just think it's really special, and I feel quite privileged to be just one of the people, because I know that many of you watch or go online with my amazing spiritual mama, Rose Roda, and that's also a lovely online community of women. Jessie, yes, it is. It's really such a privilege. It's just amazing. It's just a privilege to be able to get to sit in the seats with you on a Wednesday and a Friday morning and actually just share what God has laid on my heart, and trust that it speaks to you in whatever season that you're in. Just in relation to the 2 messages that I've released recently about Joshua, a couple of people have messaged me and said to me that they feel like I spoke about groups of people, you know, in those messages, or people who are called to specific things, and they feel as though they don't fit in with any of those groups. And so if that is you, and if you feel as though, you know, none of those groups spoke to you specifically, good morning, Jen. Good morning, my friend. I would go so far as to say that the ladies who have reached out to me to say that they didn't feel like they fitted into any particular group within those teachings that I shared, the last couple of teachings that I've shared, each one of them, because they're ladies that I know, each one of them, I felt as though they are prophetic pioneers, or priestly pioneers. And so if you feel as though you didn't fit into one of those, you know, I was calling out the Joshuas, and I was calling out the priestly pioneers, and I was calling out various people for the time that we're in. And if you're one of those people who feel like, no, none of that is for me, I think sometimes we have, an idea of what a pioneer looks like. And we assume, you know, we think of like a David Livingstone kind of a person, and it often is that in the spirit. But we can be priestly pioneers by literally just pioneering a different way of doing things, or a different way of looking at something, or a different way of treating a group of people, you know, or a different way of living, of just living our lives differently to what is the culture of the day, or even the culture of the day within the church space. So some of these incredible women who reached out to me and said to me they don't feel like they fit in to any of those spaces that I mentioned, I know that they are priestly pioneers. They don't see what they do as being so significant that they don't see it as being pioneering, and yet they are pioneering different ways of living. They are pioneering different ways of being. They are pioneering different places in the spirit. And so we don't always recognize a pioneer in the spirit the way we do a pioneer in the natural, or we assume a pioneer in the spirit is someone who is planting churches and, you know, doing things like that. And definitely that is one aspect of it. But being a priestly pioneer is paving a way for people to walk in something that is different to the norm. And whatever that is, and however you walk that out in your life, and however insignificant you feel it might be, you need to know that it is not insignificant. It is not insignificant at all. You are pioneering. Good morning, Al-Marie. Lovely to see you, my friend. Also pioneering in the spirit. So yeah, so I just want to encourage you, when you hear me call out like groups of people or groups of women, and you hear me give examples of, you know, it could look like this and it could look like that, don't allow yourself to create a frame around what that should look like. Ask God to show you which group you fit into, and don't make the part you play so insignificant that you feel like it doesn't fit into, you know, even being a Joshua, being strong and courageous, stepping into a season or a space or a time, you know, that is your God-given promised land. It might not look like the promised land to anybody else, but if you are occupying territory that God has given you to occupy like a Joshua, you are pioneering like a Joshua. So I think that we box ourselves in when firstly we see what we bring as less significant than what somebody else brings, and we box ourselves in when we don't see the fullness of what God is actually speaking about. And we assume that it's only those people who are operating on a public platform in a public space and moving forward publicly who can be pioneers. And that just is not true. That is not true. Whatever you are pioneering, whatever you are doing which is different to the way it's been done before, or different to the way people think it should be done, you know, from a godly biblical perspective, obviously, you are pioneering something. So I just wanted to clarify that, because it's just so important that we all see what we bring, you know, that we all see what we bring. Congratulations, Jenny and Devon, on your anniversary. That's actually amazing. It's Flynn and my anniversary tomorrow. So tomorrow, the 24th of November, Flynn and I have been married for 10 years. So come on, ladies, prophesy. 10, I know 10 is a very important number, and a very significant number. And I know, because I can sense, apart from just the anniversary, but that we are both stepping into a new season within this new era. And so, while we're on that topic, There will be no live on Friday, ladies. Sorry about that. There will be no Facebook Live on Friday because my husband is taking me away for our wedding anniversary. So he loves to, I mean, I also do, but he particularly loves to celebrate our wedding anniversary. And his way of celebrating our wedding anniversary is, or something that is important to him, in celebrating our wedding anniversaries, he likes to have me all to himself. So he likes to go away where he doesn't have to share me with the boys or the animals or anything else. And so there won't be any Facebook Live on Friday. I will be back again next week. Anyway, let us move on to what, feel free to, yes, to prophesy over my husband and I as you move, as I speak. But yeah, that's us, 10 years tomorrow. And I think there were lots of people who didn't think that we would make 10 years, so there we go. Evelyn, lovely to see you, my Kenyan friends. Lovely to see you. Okay, today we are going to look at the new Hebrew month, because at sunset tomorrow evening, so sunset on the 24th of November 2022, or as the sun sets on my wedding anniversary tomorrow, the 24th of November 2022, the new Hebrew month of Kislev begins. And this Hebrew month of Kislev runs from the 24th of November 2022 through to sunset on the 24th of December 2022. So it runs for a full month, a full 30 days, from sunset on the 24th of November to sunset on the 24th of December. And we are in the third month of the new civil year, so the year 5783. We are in the third month. Kislev is the third month. But Kislev is the 9th month of the biblical year. Now, in previous teachings, I have explained the difference between the biblical year and the civil year. And so Israel they actually have 4 New Years throughout their recognized year, but 2 of them are the ones that are celebrated the most, and the one is the beginning of the biblical year, which is the year according to how God spoke it into being when he spoke to the Jewish people, or the Israelites, or the Hebrews in Genesis, and then in Exodus. And then the other one is the civil New Year, which begins with Rosh Hashanah, and is more kind of a way of bringing a civil governmental authority to the Jewish calendar, because the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, and therefore in ancient times they waited for the moon to present itself in the sky in a specific season so that they moved into their next month. But obviously in these days, we don't do that anymore, and so the calendar was put into more of a formal format, and that is where the civil calendar has come from. But there are lots of Messianic Jewish people and Orthodox Jewish people who only recognize the biblical year. They don't pay much attention to the civil year. They recognize the biblical year. And that is neither here nor there. We do not look at the Hebrew calendar from a religious or a legalistic perspective. I do not preach about the Jewish feasts and calendars and the Hebrew side of things from a legalistic or a religious perspective. I come at it completely from a prophetic perspective. So however much you embrace or don't embrace the Messianic or the Jewish feasts or calendars, whatever the case may be, that is between you and the Lord. That is not for me to say or to determine. However, there is a prophetic significance within the Jewish calendar, within the Jewish feasts, that we as believers in Jesus, who was a Jew, need to pay attention to. It can be very, very important for us to pay attention to what God is saying over these times. Yes, please like and share. Like and share. My beautiful friend Bertha who's always up there with the liking and the sharing. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are approaching, so sunset tomorrow evening, we step into the month, the Hebrew month of Kislev. Now, the name Kislev, the name for the Hebrew month of Kislev comes from, it derives from the Hebrew words for security and trust. So the name Kislev comes, it derives from the Hebrew words for security and trust. It is a time to stand firm on your security in the Lord and to trust in the Lord. So for those of you who are aware of the kind of the spaces that you're in and the seasons that you're in, it is a season, for me personally, as a prophet, I am transitioning. God has very definitely closed off a specific season within this new era, and I am in that space where I transition from the one season into the next season. And that transition space, no matter how long you've walked with the Lord, no matter what your anointing, no matter what your gifting, no matter what your calling, that transition space is always uncomfortable. It is always where you're not quite sure, what you're stepping into, you're not quite sure where you're going into. And so it is a very important time to know that you get to be secure in God and you get to trust in the Lord. So that is sort of the main focus of this month of Kislev, is security and trust. It is a time, I cannot tell you how many people I've spoken to who feel that they have heard God say that they need to rest. Now, it is also a time where on the Gregorian calendar, and definitely in South Africa, and I presume in many nations around the world, we're moving into what we see as our holiday season. Over the next couple of weeks, schools shut down, many businesses close down for a couple of weeks. We go into what we call builders' holidays, where, construction stops, and companies that are involved with the construction of houses or buildings or whatever, they go on leave for 3 weeks. So in South Africa, in Cape Town, we are very much entering into what is considered to be a holiday season. And so from that perspective, it does make sense, or it might feel like it makes sense in the natural to be called into a period of rest with the Lord. But what we need to understand is that resting in God is not an inactive space. Resting in God is where you actually drawing strength from Him so that you can step into everything that He has for you. And it's not an inactive space. It's not a space where we just kind of think, okay, Lord, we don't go on holiday from the Lord. We aren't like, okay, Jesus, see you next year. I'm going to take a few weeks off from speaking to you or reading the word or spending time in your presence. If anything, if you're entering into a season where you feel like God is calling you to rest in Him, then time spent in His presence, time spent in the word, time spent, praying and interceding and just communing with God is incredibly important. It is increasingly important in times where we need to trust in God, find our security in God, and actually are resting in Him. Okay. We now are try and avoid the croakiness. So, the month of Kislev, as we've mentioned before, there is a connection between the Hebrew months and the tribes of Israel, the sons of Jacob. And the month of Kislev is connected to the tribe of Benjamin. So you might remember, oh sorry if you can hear my dog barking, apologies for that. You may remember that when Benjamin was born, that Rachel actually passed away giving birth to Benjamin. So Benjamin was born as Rachel kind of breathed her last. And so she named him Benoni, which is son of my sorrow, because it was her last. And Jacob immediately changed his name because he didn't want this child to walk around for the rest of his life with a name that meant son of my sorrow. And so he changed his name to Benjamin, which is son of my right hand. So it was definitely a more prophetically significant name and a better name for Benjamin to be walking around with. And so the tribe of Benjamin was very gifted with the art of the bow, and they were known for their courage and their ferocity. And it's very pertinent by the fact that the constellation in the sky over the month of Benjamin is Sagittarius. It is the archer. And again, and I know I say this every time, but it's because people question me so often, we do not look at the constellations in the sky from the perspective of horoscopes, or astrology or anything like that. We look at them from the perspective of the fact that God placed those constellations in the sky so that his people would be able to read the times and the seasons before the technology that we have today. So the constellations in themselves are not evil. They were created by God. It is Satan who has used them for his own purposes, and we just don't step into that. We acknowledge that they're created by God. We acknowledge that they provide a purpose, but we don't follow them or worship them or use them to plan our lives or anything like that. We do recognize where they delineate times and seasons. And so it is very pertinent that over the month that is associated with the tribe of Benjamin, who were known to be these prolific archers, that the stars in the sky, the constellation in the sky, is the constellation of Sagittarius, which is the archer. And again, the letter from the Hebrew alphabet that is associated with the month of Kislev is the letter Samech, and that means again trust and support and coming full circle. So we are in the space where we've moving into the third month, the 9th month of the biblical calendar. So we have 1/4 of the biblical calendar is left, and so we move into the space where we start to look back over how far we have come, and that fits in with our own Gregorian calendar in terms of moving into our Gregorian New Year. And ladies and gentlemen, just again, I want to just reiterate that we are not bound. We are not in bondage to either the Hebrew calendar or the Gregorian calendar. We are not bound. God is outside of time. God sits outside of time. God is not bound by a calendar. He is not bound by any specific month or any specific meaning of any specific thing, but he operates prophetically within times and seasons. That's how he created creation. That's how he operates, and he uses those times and seasons to point us in the right direction. It doesn't mean that he can't come in his Kairos time and do something completely different. He absolutely can. He is God. But we, as believers, as children of the Most High King, as followers of Jesus, we look prophetically at what he has done, and then he calls us to be like the sons of Issachar, knowing the times and the seasons and understanding, the times and the seasons of Israel, as the sons of Issachar were called to. Which brings me to the fact that Benjamin was the only child, the only one of the 12 who was born in the Promised Land. So Benjamin was actually born in the Promised Land. He was the only one, the only son who was born in the Promised Land. And of the 12 tribes, of the 12, he was the only one born in the Promised Land. And so he was known as the son of promise. And so the month of Kislev, which is associated to the tribe of Benjamin or Benjamin, is known as the month of promise. So it is a month of promise, a month of trust, a month of rest, a month of standing secure in Jesus. And it is a time when God takes us to new levels of trust and new levels of rest. It is also known as the month of the rainbow. Cheshvan, which is the month we're in right now, is the month of the flood, and Kislev is the month of the rainbow. So it's a month of covenant promises. So it's the month of covenant promises, the month of promise, the month of covenant, the month where God reminds you that he is actually, sovereign, and that he he will keep you, and he will love you, and he will be your protector, and he will be your shield, and he will be your fortress, and he will be your high tower. The month of the rainbow, the month of covenants. It is a month for increased dreams and night visions. So be aware of that. Be conscious of the fact that it is a month of increased dreams and night visions. It is a month where we look to the Lord for new warfare strategies, for new prophetic warfare strategies. It is a month, so it's this month, and so many of these months, these Hebrew months that we look at prophetically, present this like paradox. So here we have the month of Kislev. It is a month of security. It is a month of rest. It is a month of trust. It is a month of promise. It is a month of covenant. It is a month of all of those things. It is also a month, a time to fight against empires and cultures. Now again, ladies, I almost in the spirit, and gentlemen, I immediately hear people start to disqualify themselves. Oh, well, I don't fight against empires. I don't fight against cultures. We all do. When we choose to be anti the culture of the world of the day, when we choose to go against even the flow of the culture of the church of the day, we are countercultural, which means that we fight against empires and cultures. And obviously this, from a prophetic point of view, speaks more into the spiritual, and spiritually coming against empires and cultures, but it actually could also be absolutely in the natural, if God is calling you to step into places where you fight against injustice, unrighteousness, on behalf of a people group, on behalf of a particular community, on behalf of a culture, etc., etc. So isn't it amazing that God calls us to this time where he's like, you need to rest, rest in me. And then he says, okay, but at the same time, this is a time to fight against empires and cultures, because we fight against these things from a place of rest in God. This is not a place of performance. This is not a place of striving. This is not a place of trying to make it happen in your own strength. This is a place of, Jesus, I need new strategies. I need new prophetic warfare strategies. I need new battle plans. I need your battle plans and your strategies, whilst I come from this place of rest and trust and security in you. So I fight from a place of security. I fight from a place of rest. I fight from a place of trusting in you. And that is the space that we're in this month of Kislev. Particularly, specifically, it is a time, and again, I want to say, it is not that God doesn't do any of these things in the rest of the year. He is not governed by sunset on the 24th of November to sunset on the 24th of December. But it is a time where more of these things become apparent, and where God speaks to us in these ways. So it is a time, because bearing in mind that Benjamin, remember the archer, Sagittarius, the bow, and, you can read through biblical accounts in the Old Testament and know that the Benjamites were known for their prowess with the bow. They were known to be incredible archers. In one text in the Old Testament, I forget now where it is, but it speaks about the Benjamites who were able to shoot left-handed. They had left-handed archers, and how them as a tribe took on the whole rest of the tribes of Israel, and actually defeated them before they were defeated. And that was because of their archery skills, because of the skills of their men with the bow. And so it is a time to shoot straight, to move quickly, and to cut your losses and move on. There's nothing the enemy likes more than to hold us back or keep us back in a space or a season or a place, because we do not know that prophetically it is a time to move ahead. So he keeps us in this place, because we have false loyalty, because we feel like we're doing a good thing, because we love the people that we're in the space with, because we wonder who else will do what we're doing. There are so many things that the enemy uses to keep us in places and spaces that we no longer should be, where we're supposed to actually have moved on. And in the same way, he tries to keep us in battles that we no longer need to fight. He tries to keep us, fighting things that are actually done with, fighting things that are in a previous season, staying in places that aren't the season we're supposed to be in. That is it's the way that he keeps us back. And so it is a time to be really listening closely. I mean, we should always be listening closely to the voice of the Lord, but it is a time even more so to be listening closely to the voice of the Lord, so that we know how to shoot straight, to move quickly, to cut our losses, and to move on. For many of you out there, it is time to cut your losses and move on. Move into the next season. Some of us remain where we are because we don't know what the next season looks like. We know there's another season, but we stay where we are because God hasn't given us a clear indication of exactly what it looks like yet. But for some of you, God is saying you need to step out, and I will meet you there. You need to step out in faith, in trust, in security, and I will meet you there. And so don't allow the enemy to delay you. Don't allow the enemy to delay your obedience. Don't allow the enemy to delay your moving forward. You take up that bow and arrow in the spirit. You shoot straight. You move quickly. You cut your losses. You move on. You're asking, you're resting in God. You're trusting in God. Your security is in God alone. And you are saying to him, what are my battle plans for the next season? What are my battle plans for the next year? How do I cut off this stuff that is pulling me back and move ahead in what you have for me, Jesus? And some of those decisions and some of those choices, can I just be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, are going to be uncomfortable and unpopular. Okay? Some of the decisions and the choices that we have to make in order to move into the new season that God has for us are uncomfortable and they are unpopular. Never more do people question whether we are hearing from God than when we are moving into something that the people who are closest to us, who love us, do not agree with or do not see. They don't see it the way we see it. But at the end of the day, ladies, and I said this to somebody before, and I'm going to repeat it, at the end of the day, we stand before Jesus accountable on our own. We can't say, well, my best friend said X, or my mother-in-law said Y, or my father said Z. We can't do that. We stand alone, accountable before God when he says to us, why did you not move when I told you to move? So for some of you, the choices and the decisions that you need to make to move into this next season are going to be uncomfortable and they're going to be unpopular, and you need to remind yourself that you are trusting in God, your security is in God, and you are resting in God. And so even though you might feel like you are in the midst of warfare, you will have peace and tranquility because it is a season of trust and a season of rest and a season of security. And so what you have in the midst of your warfare, you will experience peace and tranquility. It's not to say that you will not feel pain. It is not to say that people cannot hurt you. It is not to say that when people disagree with, the decisions you've made or the choices you've made, that will not be painful and there will not be heartache. That I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that if you have peace in your pain, then you're okay. You're okay with Jesus. I went through just a really difficult experience recently, and it was incredibly painful. But in the midst of that pain, I had peace. I had the peace of Jesus, in that I knew that I was okay and I was in peace. And that was what actually kept me going. So it is important to know, while you are moving and cutting losses and moving on, to keep checking your spirit and make sure you are in peace. You are at peace. Because if you are at peace with where you are, then your security is in God, you are trusting on the Lord, and you are moving even in the midst of warfare, in a season of peace and tranquility. That is incredibly important, ladies. That is incredibly important to pay attention to that. To pay attention to whether you have the peace of the Lord as you move forward. No matter what man says, no matter what the people around you say, often the people who are closest to us, the people who love us the most, have the most to say because they love us, because they want what is best for us, because they don't see it for themselves, but they don't want us to be hurt, and they don't want us to lose out, and they don't want us to suffer. But we cannot allow those things to delay us in places, to keep us in spaces, or to keep us in battles that we should no longer be fighting. So the season of Benjamin is an incredibly significant season. It is also when we celebrate Hanukkah, if you celebrate Hanukkah. And Hanukkah, oh golly. Time is running away with me again. Hanukkah begins at sunset on the 18th of December 2022, and it runs through to sunset on the 26th of December 2022. Those are the dates for Hanukkah. Sunset on the 18th of December through to sunset on the 26th of December. And for those of you who don't know, Hanukkah is the only holiday in the Jewish calendar that connects 2 months. It connects Kislev and the month after Kislev, which is Tevet. The name Hanukkah means dedication, and it is an 8-day feast where the Jewish people celebrate the story of the Maccabees. Now, I don't have time to give you the full story of the Maccabees, but basically the Maccabees were a tribe or a family within the Jewish people who rose up at a time when the Jewish people were being very, very oppressed, and when the temple of Jerusalem had been completely defiled by the people, it was a Greek, I think it was a Greek army and a Greek general, and they had defiled the temple of God. They had slaughtered a pig on the altar. They had completely defiled it, and so then the Maccabees rose up and they revolted against them, and they actually won, and which was unusual because it was a very small amount of people who fought, but they actually won, so God's hand was on it. And then the temple had to be rededicated, but they didn't have enough. So in the temple then, the menorah is supposed to burn continually. So in order for the temple to be rededicated, the menorah has to burn continually. But they only had enough undefiled oil for 1 day. And there is a process to produce undefiled oil to use within the menorah so that the menorah can burn continuously in the temple. So they only had enough oil for 1 day. And yet, even though they only had enough oil for 1 day, the menorah burnt continuously for 8 days until they had time to make or to produce undefiled oil to put into the menorah. So it was a miracle of multiplication. It was a miracle of multiplication. God came through for the Jewish people. A very small amount of Jewish people defeated this very large and powerful army, and that was by the hand of God. And it was, even though the story of the Maccabees isn't included in the Bible, it is true, it is based on historical fact, and it was the hand of God that delivered the temple back into the hands of the Jewish people. And then the oil, which was supposed to only last for 1 day, actually lasted for the full 8 days that they needed it to last for. So not only is the month of Kislev, or the month of Benjamin, a month where you are secure in God, where you trust in God, where you rest in God, where you warfare from a place of tranquility and peace, where you're moving on, cutting your losses. It is also a month of multiplication. So it is a month where you see, where you witness situations where David's beat Goliaths, where small, what people or groups or communities or cultures that are considered small and insignificant land up winning battles of epic proportions because God's hand is on them. And then you have the miracle of multiplication, where even though you know that you only have enough for X, you actually trust in the miracle of multiplication that that X will be multiplied as you need it, because God is with you, and your trust and your security and your faith is in Him in this month. So ladies, it is a very significant month. It is a very significant month. There is so much available to us within the month of Kislev, as is in all the months of the biblical year. But each month, and again, I want to reiterate, it doesn't mean that it is confined to just this month. So at the end of the month of Kislev, or at sunset on the 24th of December, your multiplication miracle doesn't just stop, but it is a month where God draws our attention to specific things in the Spirit, and He reminds us of who He is and of who we are. And He says, those battles and things that you're facing, pay attention to this. Pay attention to the fact that you're in covenant. Pay attention to the fact that this is a month of promise. Pay attention to the fact that this is a month to trust in me, to rest in me, to find your tranquility and your peace in me. Pay attention to the fact that this is a month where, if you are knowing that you need to move on from a place or a space or people or whatever it is, that this is the month where God is saying, cut your losses, move on, move quickly, shoot from the hip and move quickly. This is a month to receive confirmation for those things, because God is saying, pay attention. Pay attention. This is not something that I'm calling you to be bound by. This is me giving you prophetic breadcrumbs for whatever you are actually walking through in this time and in this season in your life. So pay attention, and that is what He does. That in my personal experience, and in my experience since I've been teaching on the Hebrew months, that is what God uses this for. So it doesn't, I'm not as interested. Oh golly, sorry, it's the fire of the Holy Spirit, the anointing of the Holy Spirit. I can actually feel it on me. So it's, me personally, from where I stand with Jesus, I am not particularly concerned about whether you celebrate Hanukkah or whether you celebrate Christmas. Other people are very concerned about that, and that is okay. That is okay. I am not concerned about that. As a prophet, I am concerned about the fact that you pick up on the prophetic flashing lights that God is putting up to guide you along your way. That you pick up on those, we always long for those arrows in the sky. How many times have I said to the Lord, Jesus, could you just put like an arrow in the sky? And these are God's arrows in the sky. This is when we say, Lord, we need direction, and why aren't you speaking to me? God is like, I'm speaking. These are my prophetic flashing lights guiding you home. These are my prophetic arrows in the sky pointing you in the right direction. These are my prophetic warning lights saying, my people, it's time to move on. It's time to step into something new. It's time to look for new battle strategies, look for new warfare plans. It's time to rest and trust in me. Stop striving. Stop trying to do it yourself. Give it to me. So that's what the Hebrew months and everything that they signify, that is what, for me as a prophet, that is what they mean for me. That is what they mean. That is where I come from when I preach and teach on them, is from that perspective, from prophetic just prophetic signs, So, ladies and gentlemen, that our time is up. And I hope that you got a lot out of that. I hope that it has brought clarity for you on the season that you are entering into, and the spaces and the places that God is calling you to move on from, and the spaces and the places that He is calling you to occupy. And so just a reminder for those of you who weren't on from the beginning, there will be no Facebook Live on Friday because I will be away for the weekend with my husband celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And so I will not see you on Friday. You will still get the devotionals for those of you who have subscribed to the daily devotionals. Oh, very quickly, if any of you subscribed like only now and you haven't received the first, I can't remember how many it is now, of the daily devotional series, if you drop me an email, arise@sallygoodwin.com, if you just drop me an email, I will forward you the ones that I've sent out so far. Pay attention to today's one, please. It's a story that's quite close to my heart. And so for those of you who are still subscribed to the devotional, who are subscribed to the devotionals, you will still receive them. And I will see you next week, Wednesday. Okay. So love you, ladies and gentlemen. Bless you. Be blessed, be highly favored. I just decree and declare wisdom and revelation over you, that you will be able to resonate with the prophetic flashing lights that are aimed particularly at you, whoever you are. Love you lots, ladies. Mwah. See you next week.